Hi everyone, how are you? Happy New Year. It is 2026. I know. It's right now it's January 11th as I'm filming this video. So I know it's been 11 days since 2026 has happened, and I know a lot has happened, and I can't wait to talk to you about my new year, what's been going on, and how it's going so far. And most importantly, I can't wait to talk to you about books. So this video is going to be about all the books I read in December. So please don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Subscribe, hit that button. Let's grow together. Share with your friends through any kind of weather. Library without borders.
Jambo, Karibu, welcome to my channel. My name is Chilanda and this is Library Without Borders. Yes, y'all, I thought I'd look a bit classy for y'all, you know. Sometimes I like to wear these beret. You know, I love beret looks. Do you guys love beret? I don't know. I love this look, and I love this color, you know. And also, you guys, I'm gonna show you my hair in the next video, but I still try to attempt to get the white color, and I failed again. We'll talk about this in my next video. But right now, before I even talk to you about the books that I read in December, I just want to say editing is painful, and I want to salute to all you YouTubers, booktubers that do this content and then edit your own videos. Okay, hats to you, because I had edited a video back when, and it was a disaster. Thank God y'all never said anything about that. And then the first video that I posted in, you know, this year, which was my November wrap up, also was painful. You guys, every time I tried to edit certain parts of the videos, certain parts would move. You know, like when I had added pictures of books, you know, it's at a specific minute. So when you move something at the beginning, everything else moves. And every time I would watch, I would download the, you know, the video, export it, I would see that something was delayed either, and it was at an off place, and I was just like, oh my God. But you guys, we're gonna have to deal with it, okay? I'm not gonna put any special effects in my video like my husband used to, because I need to master the editing process. Then I can start adding, you know, little gifs and those little fun stuff that my husband adds, okay? So again, I just want to say thank you for all of you who watched the video from the beginning to the end, who liked it, who commented. I truly appreciate it, and I ask that you be patient with me while I learn to edit my own videos, so that I can start becoming consistent, because at that point I will not be, you know, depending on my husband, who, by the way, has been fired. Yes, I fired him. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say. So again, we're gonna get into talking about the books I read in December. But whew, guys, how are you? This year is, I don't know, it's starting well. I have hopes for myself, my family. We got plans and all that stuff, but mostly I'm thinking I have hope for the world, because 2025 was something else. Okay, so anyways, let's talk about the books that I read in the month of December. So I know in the previous month I said I read 9 books, but y'all, it was 8 books. I know, but like, who's counting? But like, it was really 8 books. I swear I went down, because I'm also preparing a video talking about my goals, and if I had achieved the previous goals that I had set myself, that I had set for, you know, the year 2025, all of that. So I had to do a count of all the books that I've read and all of that stuff. So that, again, I will be talking to you about in my next video. So 8 books were read in the month of November. That's the final count. It was not 9. And in December, It's 8, but because I counted that book in the month of November, I'm gonna say it's 7 books. So I read Remember the Patient. I was confusing with The Silent Patient. So The Patient was actually read in the month of December, believe it or not. So it was not November. So from The Patient, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if I count The Patient. But if I don't count it because I counted in the month of November, then it's 7 books. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to talk to you about the first book that I started the month with, and it was rough. Okay? So here's my pile of books. And of course, I listened to some Audible. So first off, I want to talk to you about this book. This book here, Judy Rever in Praise of Blood, The Crimes of the Rwandan Patriotic Front. Now, I did a little short where I read a little excerpt of this book, and I think the one comment I got on that video was like, ooh, Merry Christmas to you, and you know, I'll put the comments here. It was really interesting, and I'm glad that comment was made, because as some of you may have watched it, I responded this way, right? Because I know a lot of us want to live in, I don't know, like in our own world where everything is fine. You know, you're spending Christmas with your family. Life, even though is not perfect, it's good, you know. But that's not the reality of people in Congo and Sudan and other parts of the world. But I'm talking mostly about Congo, okay? And you may have been in the safety of your home singing Christmas songs, whereas some people during that time were listening to Bullet. That was their music. That was their Christmas. Okay? So anyways, I'm not gonna go too much into details about this book because I have made a video where I explain a bit the things I learned in this book, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I think, I'm not sure that I posted it, I posted on my TikTok. If you have my TikTok, you know, I'll put my social media information either at the end or at some part. But yeah, I spoke about that, and I don't want to talk too much about this in this wrap up, okay? Because you guys, this book details so much atrocities that I do not even think you guys can conceive the kind of atrocities human beings have gone. So this is about the Hutu and Tutsi genocide that occurred in 1994, 1996, okay? And the reason why I read this book, it's not because I want to talk about Rwanda, because Rwanda has been talked about and Congo has not been talked about enough. The only reason was because she spoke about that war and how it spilled over onto the eastern part of Congo. Do you understand? That's the reason why I wanted to bring this book to your attention. It's not because I want to bring Rwanda, because everybody's still talking about Rwanda. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but they're still talking about it. And no one is talking about Congo enough. Millions of people have died. Whereas Rwanda, people will tell you it's in the thousands, maybe 100, less than 1 million. But we have over 15 million people who have died because of that war. And it still continues. That's the reason why I wanted to read this book. And again, I don't want to read you. I usually want to read the quotes just because, you know, I want you to go through what I went through while I was reading this book. Because it's an important read. It really is an important read. Because right now the world is still upholding the president of Rwanda, who's Paul Kagame. He's still seen as this person who has brought Rwanda together. But this author, the thing she described that this man has been responsible for, the Hutus were the ones who had started the war. But the Tutsis, when they took over, guys, what they did is inconceivable. To children, old people, women, young, They used all kinds of things to kill. Hose, guns, incineration, gas, all kinds of torture. And sometimes they will round up people around stadium, gymnasium. They will lure them with food, because a lot of people were running. They will lure them with food and tell them that, you know, everything is okay and all that. And then they will, close the stadium. Guards will be up there, and then they will start just shooting. Bam, 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 bam. And then when you had all those United Nations and those, all those, Doctors Without Borders that will come, or the United Nations soldiers, how do you call those, army, that will come and try to see, because they were hearing things, but they were not seeing. You know what those Tutsi killers did? They would incinerate bodies, and they would dig in mass graves and just put bodies there. At some point, there's a part where Judy, the author, describes how some people, when they started coming forward talking about their experiences and what they witnessed, they would talk about how bodies were floating in the water, and how at some point there were like 3 children that were pierced. Like 3 children that were pierced with something. So 3 on 1. You guys, okay. And the reason why, again, I mentioned this book being important, it's because we need to be aware of what's going on with Rwanda and how it is attacking, aggressing a sovereign country, and all the people or all the nations who have supported Rwanda. Do you know that this book describes the role of the United Nations, of the United States, of the United Kingdom? All those European countries were very much aware of what Kagame and his proxies were doing, of all the killings that were happening and are still happening, and they still supported him. So, if you don't believe me, I just want you to know. I know a lot of people that follow me, you guys are in the United States. But I know you know that the United States, as much as you uphold that country, is very much involved in a lot of the destabilization that's happening on the continent. You guys know. So it's okay. Like I said, love America as much as you want. But those are facts, okay? And talking about facts and what the United States is doing and has done, what he says about Congo, and it's the way he says it. It's just the way he says it. It's so condescending, and it kills me that our president, this president, because I know I live in Canada, but this one, has had to go and seek the help of the United States. You cannot want to have an independent African nation and still go seek the help of the colonizers, of the oppressor. It doesn't work. But our situation is more complex. I'm not going to talk about it. But also, Venezuela. Really, y'all? Really? I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. But yes, so I did not read this book because it's a non-fiction and it's just an important read. Okay, so I recommend read it. It's going to be hard. Every page is going to be hard, but there's only 300 pages. You could do it. Okay. Whew. Now we have that out of the way. Let's talk about more fun books. I hope I read more fun books. Let's see. So next I read This Kind of Trouble, so by Toshi. I think that one was also an anticipated read of mine for 2025. Now I don't have it here, so I'm hoping I wrote a summary, because y'all, a lot has happened. A lot of books have been read ever since. So let's see. So it was a 375 right here. So This Kind of Trouble right here, and by Toshi Eze, and it's a fiction book. And it says here, Derek and Priscilla, 1905, pregnant but a virgin. Oh yes, I remember the story. And then there's Margaret. she's seeing creatures. And then there's Benjamin, 1962, Lagos, and Cynthia. She's older. Okay. So I believe this book was generational. It was a generational type of family saga. And it began, like I said, with Derek and Priscilla. So if I recall, Priscilla is black and they're living obviously in Nigeria. And it's during the 1905. And she not marries, but she goes out with a white person. You know, during that time, you know, colonizers and slavers could not mix. But she falls in love with this white dude. And then from then on, there is their descendants. You will follow their descendants, okay? All right, you guys. So the main characters are Margaret and Benjamin, okay? And it's around them that the story now moves between their past and their future. And I'm just briefly going to talk a little bit of what I remember of the story. So my review, I said, I enjoyed the references to Nigerian traditions, customs, and the mention of their deities. Reflections on what it means to belong to a lineage and what legacy one chooses to leave behind. I wrote family emerged when resources needed to be shared. That's very typical of Africans. You know, when you made it, you will see that you start to discover these new family members that you didn't even know about because, you know, now they know that you got money to share, you know. So, but that's essentially what's happening with Benjamin and Margaret. And one thing about Margaret is that she's seeing creatures. Like literally, she wakes up one day and she starts seeing these creatures that no one else sees. So you can see that there is mental instability happening with her, and that will cause her marriage to dissolve because Benjamin didn't know how to help her, and he does leave her and moves away to the United States. And Margaret stays alone to raise her daughter by herself, even with that whole instability. And as you heard me mention, Priscilla and Derek, those are their past ancestors, and you followed the story of Derek and Priscilla, what happened with them. And as I mentioned, he was white during a tumultuous time where, you know, Nigeria was still gaining their independence and dealing with the aftermath of colonization and slavery. And then you have this village girl who falls in love with a white guy, and villagers are not happy about that. And what happens is that something tragic happens. Yeah, black people have suffered. So when white blood is spilled, well, what can I say? You know, the blood of black folks runs rampant on this earth. So anyways, but yeah, it's a 375. I said Margaret and Priscilla and her daughter were my favorite. They were my favorite characters. And what I want to say about Priscilla, the daughter, Margaret's daughter, she was very interesting because as soon as she grew up, she also started her own life, but she had a son, and that son started showing signs of what her mother has. Do you understand? So I love the way she handled her mother and her son, you know. But one thing that I found was interesting, I know I said I will not say much, was that once she discovered that her son was going through what she was going through, she went to her mom to seek help, and the mom decided that they were not going to get help medically. They had to go back to the village where it all began, speak to the witch doctor, who would then foretell what the solution was. Do you understand? And what the solution was that somebody needed to spill blood, like somebody had to die, for basically the curse that Margaret has had with seeing creatures, for it to be broken. So a lot of interesting things. It can get a little complicated. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of going back to the past and the future, but if you are attentive enough, you can still enjoy the story. So there you have it. That was the second book. Next, I read this book. Now, I had a lot of hopes with this book, but I find that I got lost a little bit. So let me see what I wrote. So anyways, we'll do Magic for Small Change by Daniel Jose Older. This is her. And it's so funny, I realized that I actually have a book by her, which is which one is it? Master of Poison, I think. Yeah, Master of Poisons. This one. I have this book by her, Master of Poison. So because I did not really the story didn't really mark me, I'm not sure that I'll pick up her book like right away, but we'll see. Let me just see what I rated this book, you guys. Okay, so let's see. 3 stars. So I rated it 3 stars right here, and hopefully I can read my writing, y'all, because like I said, I write in point form sometimes just so I know to remember what to remember and what the story was about, right? So sometimes my sentences do not make sense. So Cinnamon, Sekou, and Opal. So it begins with the Dahomey Kingdom. The Wanderer is Kehinde. And then we have them navigating through different timelines. So I think this is, how do you call it? Science fiction type of books. It's not really fantasy. It's more like science fiction. I think it's Taiwo. So it's Taiho, the name, okay? So Taiwo is the Wanderer. Then you have Sister of Sekou. Then you have Cinnamon, was navigating 2 worlds. She's also dealing with her brother's death, her father's attempted murder, and her sexuality. Okay, and here's my review. The story had some aspects that I enjoyed, such as the references to the African gods, the Nigerian tribes, and language. I love the story of Kehinde being a warrior, Dahomey, of her being a warrior in the Dahomey Kingdom. The part where Cinnamon is in the present is where I lost my interest at times. Raven, Opal, Iris, Claus, Mori, and Redwood. Okay, you guys. So essentially, the story is of Cinnamon. So Cinnamon is dealing with the death of her brother. Okay, and while that is happening, he left a chronicle. Okay, so chronicles of these stories, and these stories come alive, and she gets transported. Once she reads the story, she gets transported into the past, and where she gets transported is in Nigeria, in the Dahomey Kingdom, and that's where she meets Kehinde. And you follow Kehinde and Cinnamon plus 3 friends. Okay, you have those 3 friends are Raven, I think, Opal, and Claus. Okay, but there's also a relationship that is explored between Cinnamon and her mom. It's very fraught with tension, and you try to understand why is it so. And you also learn that her brother is dead, but also her dad is in a coma in a hospital. Okay, so that's basically her present. So she gets lost in those chronicles, and she discovers the story of Kehinde, and Kehinde also has a story. That's where you also discover the Nigerian gods and what is basically Kehinde running from, because she is running. And the thing with the story is that during those chronicles, when she goes back into that universe, basically she never goes back right there at the same time. You know, that's basically time traveling, you know what I mean? So Kehinde herself has also lost her brother. She basically killed her brother. Okay, but you need to understand why that occurred, because remember, Kehinde in that world is running from something. So what can I say? I did say the language. Yeah, they speak certain words that I enjoyed in the book, but yeah, you guys, I don't know what else to say. It was okay. Like I don't know what I expected. Like I said, the historical part is what I loved. Y'all know me, I love history. And the present, I just found it a little bit different. And remember how I mentioned that she's also battling or trying to understand her sexuality? She goes out with her two friends. There's one who's German and one who is, I think, Asian. And then she's black and she's a bit thick. Also, there are parts where she does poetry. Did I tap that? There was a nice spoken word in the book. That part, that was beautiful. She dropped it and I was like, woo, because I was listening to the audible. It was beautiful. But yeah, so she's dealing with her sexuality because her brother was gay. And during, I think it's during the 90s, 80s, or even, yeah, what is it? Does she talk about the year? It's 1893 Chicago. I don't. Before her brother died, he gave Cinnamon the Chronicles of the Great Wanderer, a tale of a Dahomean warrior woman and an alien from another dimension who performed at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. So 1893 is, yeah, when the Chronicles take place, but during present time, I think it's 1990s. And I just wanted to read you some excerpts because I think I like this little quote here. Cut your chains and you become free. Cut your roots and you die. I really like that. But there was some language that the author used, and I think a lot of people were, especially, who are gay or, will find a bit offensive. But I think she was being true to the time then and how folks, talked about gay people there. Let's see here. So there's a conversation that again occurs, and I like to highlight these moments because these are the things I try to bring to the attention of you, my viewers, and us together so that we can dismantle all those, I guess we'll go with perceptions. But anyway, so she's having a conversation, Cinnamon, she's having a conversation with her family, okay? Her families. And I think they're even at the funeral. And she says, one of the person at the table says, Africans sold my ancestors to get rich. And then there's another one, same person says, nothing wrong with made in America. Africans still got their history and they're a hot mess. Going downhill fast. Woo! Okay. Okay, African American. I hear what you say. But this is why I read a lot. And because I know comments like that could not affect me. Before it would have affected me. But now, because I know facts, these comments to me just sounds ignorant. It just sounds ignorant. Like their history and they're a hot mess. Do you know why we're a hot mess? Do you want me to talk about America and the involvement? Okay, I'll stop. Okay, but y'all know what okay, I'll stop. But last quote. Another quote. Let's see this one. I know I pressed this part. I know I highlighted this part. Listen. Why consult Ifa or Ani if the wisdom of the ancestors is worthless amajambu to you? Dr. Pierre insisted demons and Orisha were unscientific superstition, but he knelt down to pray and ate the body and blood of his God. Christians come to conquer rich lands with machine guns and civilized lies. You converts are the traitors who have lost the taste of loyalty. Amen. Amen. I agree with that. Yes, so like I said, you see, I enjoyed some parts of the books. There were some things that were like, okay, boom, bada boom. What about the offensive things? I think I highlighted the offensive things. Here. Let's see here. She'd have to explain the whole faggot thing. Their mod squad secret society had survived the ghost thing, an MB sexual alien thing, maybe even a trio thing. Do you see? Faggot was used a lot, and other words that, and I'm like I said, please do not be like I'm not gonna read it because of that use of word. She uses it within the context of the time in which this story is told. Okay, so just be mindful of that, because even I was like, oh, okay. So anyways, you guys, it was a 3. I already said that, so that's it for that one. Next, I read My Husband Next Door. So that was an Audible as well. My Husband Next Door, where was it? What was the book about? Oh, let me see if I wrote, because sometimes I do not write. Brenda, she's a retired nurse and she's older. And then we have Sylvie, she's Jess's mother, gets tangled up with Brenda. And then Matt, Sylvie's husband. So I did not put a rating here, but it's definitely gonna be a 3-star, because it was a good time, you know. All these free audibles, it was a good time. So it was by K L Slap. Okay, I'll put her name here so I do not say some things that I'm not supposed to be saying. But essentially, it's, yeah, the story of Brenda and Sylvie and Matt. So Sylvie and Matt are married, but they don't live together. He lives in another apartment. What kind of arrangement is that? That already is messed up. But that's not even, you know, the gist of the story. Then enters this lady, Brenda. Brenda is a retired nurse. She moves to this neighborhood, and directly she gets involved with Sylvie. How? She comes knocking at the door and decides to give cookies, and then one thing leads to another. She literally inserts herself in the lives of Matt and Jess and Sylvie, and then things starts to go awry, and somehow Brenda seems to know what's going on. And in the midst of all of that, there is a missing girl case in the story, and that is happening. Then you have Sylvie, who start to suspect her husband of infidelity, because, you know, they're together, but then there's tension, and then Brenda being in that whole mix as well exacerbates the whole situation. And then Sylvie's like, what is going on? How did her life become so upended? And at the same time, her daughter has a friend who also goes missing, and then there's like, then a whole thing starts happening, which is she starts to suspect that maybe Matt could be behind these girls going missing. But of course, if that was the case, then there wouldn't be a twist, right? So anyways, it was a good time. It was 3 out of 5 for me. I would recommend. It's free. It's a thriller. Why not, right? Okay. So next, I read River Spirit by Leila Abulela. Now, I read that story because, again, Sudan, what's going on in Sudan, you know? And I just wanted to read this book because, again, we need to read more stories, even in a fiction format, that speaks of the reality that's going on in this world. You know, we cannot tell ourselves that we've come a long way and think that now everything is okay. You know, everybody that's died have fought all the battles that they needed to fight for us to be here, and now all we can just do is sit on our asses and just read la books, because what, we deserve it. Okay, anyway, so what did I say about River Spirit? Now, when I picked up this book, I thought it'd be talking about the war, the present war that's going on in Sudan, but it actually was a historical historical read. It talked about the Ottoman Empire. I knew it, you guys. I knew it. I did not write a summary about it. So let me just read you the synopsis, and maybe that can trigger my memory a little, okay? So this enchanting and eye-opening new novel from Cain Prize winner Leila Abulela follows an embattled young woman coming of age during the Mahdist War in 19th century Sudan. And illuminates the tensions that shape her course between Britain and Sudan, Christianity and Islam, colonizers and colonized. That's why I picked it up. In River Spirit, Abulula gives us the unforgettable story of a people who, against the odds and for a brief time, gained independence from foreign rule through their willpower, subterfuge, and sacrifice. When Akweni and her brother Bol are orphaned in a village raid in South Sudan, they are taken in by a young merchant, Yasin, who promises to care for them, a vow that tethers him to Akweni through their adulthood. So I don't want to read too much, you guys, but that's essentially what the book was about. And I remember when they were talking about the Ottoman Empire, and I was quickly remembering King Cam. He usually does these videos about Egypt and the ancient you know, the history of Egypt and the Ottoman Empire. And I remember he talked about it, and then when I heard Ottoman Empire, I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, so this young girl is orphaned because her village was attacked. So she runs away with this guy, Yasin, that's his name, who promises to be their keepers. And what he does, he puts her and her what's her name, Akweni, is that her name? So Akweni, he puts her in the village, in another village where his family is, for them to grow up there, and he goes away. And while these wars are happening, you will find out that the British were there. Obviously, they had colonized Sudan and they were there. Okay, you guys, so yeah, while Akweni is with Yasin's family, he goes away to study in Egypt. Okay, obviously he's studying there, but like I said, right now there's a war brewing because of this guy. I think he's called the Mahdi. The Mahdi. He's declared himself after I think Muhammad, peace be upon him. Like, he's being sent by Muhammad, peace be upon him, and basically to wage war and dominate over the whole of Sudan. But this story is a bit complex, okay? You have to really be present and know what's going on, okay? Because you have the involvement of Egypt, you have Sudan, you have the British Empire, and the British Empire are, I think, behind Egypt, and Egypt are like involved in the war in Sudan. Then you have North Sudan and then South Sudan. Then again, you heard the whole talk about Islam versus Christianity. So Sudan was mostly, you know, an Islamist country, and then with the rise of the British Empire, Christianity was being imposed on them, so they were also fighting that. So I'm just gonna read you a few two or three quotes, and then we'll conclude the summary of this book. As expected, not everyone in Egypt is comfortable with these displays of Western culture. I hear the complaints within Al-Azhar itself. Earlier this year, our sheikhs supported Urabi Pasha's nationalist mutiny against encroaching foreign influence. Egypt is for the Egyptians, not the Ottomans and not the British, who are pulling the strings from behind them. So I also like this part where I believe it was during a conversation that Yasin was having with either a colleague, because when he went to Egypt to study. So he says here the following in that conversation. The question is, where did Khedive Ismail get the money for all the modernization required to claim that Egypt is no longer part of Africa, but instead part of Europe? It's true that he borrowed from foreign banks. He was in such severe debt that shares of the Suez Canal had to be sold to Britain. But he had another source of revenue, the Sudan, which his grandfather invaded in 1820 and annexed to the Ottoman Empire. Ivory, gum, Arabic, ostrich, feathers, tamarind, and senna, all these my country has an abundance of, but it is the taxes that are devastating the people. So I like this conversation again, especially the part where it said Egypt is not part of Africa. It's so funny because I don't know if many of you watch the AFCON, which is the African International Soccer League game, whatever. and unfortunately Congo has been eliminated. My heart. But the last game that we were watching was I think it was Egypt versus Ivory Coast. And you know, I'm gonna say it, we were voting. We wanted Ivory Coast, okay? Because there is also this thing happening on the internet. Again, me, I want to be part of the solution. That's why, as I said, I read diverse books where I learn about other people and their cultures, traditions, so that I can never be accused of creating divisions. You know, I want to be able to live in a world where we all accept who we are, our traditions, our cultures, and all that stuff, and we all live our life peacefully. So that said, there is this conversation happening. Again, I saw it on TikTok because, yeah, the games are happening. There is always political matters. And one of them was that I think the countries such as Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, you know, those parts have declared they usually don't like to be considered Africans, even if they're in the continent. Anyways, and they apparently have called themselves like they're from the Arabic Peninsula, something like that. Yet, when we're playing these soccer games, they are very much like, ooh, we won the African, or we're moving to the next African. But you don't like to be associated with Africa. Like, I don't get it. You know, it's like this thing, black people, you will understand this. You know how everybody likes what we bring, but they just don't like us? It's the same thing. Like, they love the idea of Africa when it's, you know, we're playing together, or certain parts of Black Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, whatever. But then when it becomes to being called Africans, oh my God, no, I'm Arabic. I'm something else. Same thing with Somali. I heard that there's this talk about what, Israel wanting to name Somali, and Lord, when I say these white folks have done a number on us and the Arabs, this is what's happening. Anyways, you guys, like I said, it's an important read. You learn a lot about the Ottoman Empire, Egypt, the British Empire, and how Sudan fought to have their independence. And in the midst of that, there is the story of this little girl. By the way, I have to conclude. She was stolen at some point to be sold as a slave. Yes, during that time, there were still, even though there was a law that was forbidding you know, Sudanese women from being enslaved, it was still practiced. Y'all know that. Before it was completely, even when slavery was abolished almost around everywhere, it still went on for some time. It was the same thing. So unfortunately, that happened to her. But there is a good ending, you know, to her story. She does not continue as a slave, okay? But there's a lot of aspects to this story. I can't all say it in the few minutes, okay? But I definitely recommend, and it'd be a 375 for me. I know I did not. It'd be a 375. Gosh, I had it here, but I didn't write it. I think because I was getting at the end of the year, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna whip it, and look at me not really doing a good job of that. But next, I read The Witch Doctor. Actually, The Witch Doctor was read before, and the only reason I read this book, it's actually a series, I didn't know. So I have the third one, but I'm missing the second one. I would have actually read the second one right after. So this book is written by Tamar Myers, and she was born and raised in the Belgian Congo. Believe it or not, that's the reason why I read the book. And I think when I had hauled this book, I had read the synopsis, and I told you why I picked up the book. It was because it was talking about the Congo. And it's during the 1958, at the dawn of the independence of Congo. Y'all, did you see Patrice Lumumba, the guy that's been standing in the stadium while we were playing the soccer games? Like, he's now big. Like, people have noticed him. Like, he's been there, you know, doing that in honor of Patrice Lumumba. So anyways, you guys, you should watch him. He's on Instagram. Like, if you don't know about him, I don't know, like, Congo needs to be trending in your life, okay? Because so this book, I love this book actually, but I love this book because he spoke about Congo, and she actually talked about my tribe. Do you know that, again, Congo has a lot of tribes, but there are 4 main tribes that you usually hear about. It's the Luba, the Congo tribe, the Bakongo, the Baluba tribe, the Batetela, and what's the 4th? The Kuba. Okay, those are the 4 main tribes, but there's other many tribes and over 200 dialects. So the Luba tribe is the one that's big, that we're really the biggest. Okay, yeah, hey, it's not to, I'm not a tribalist, I'm not the division, I'm just saying that, you know, it's between you and I. So anyway, so when she talked about that, and she actually spoke about this girl, Amanda comes from the United States. Do you know what she goes to do in Congo? She goes there because she's on a mission. What kind of mission? You know what I'm talking about. Missionary position. That sounds really that sounds sexual, but y'all know I'm not talking about that. She's there as a missionary to go and convert us Congolese people. Okay? Precisely the Luba people. So she's in, I think she's in the Katanga part. I think she's in the Katanga part there. And then there, she will meet different people. And when I say different people, the funniest people with the weirdest names ever. Let me just read you the names. Oh, by the way, what I liked about this book, what Tamar Myers did was that she gives each chapter, she gives facts about Congo. And for example, protruding navel. Yes. So Amanda has this guy. He's obviously Congolese Muluba, and then he works for Amanda in their house, because again, there they have house girls, okay, not slave, but house girls, house boys, and one of them is called protruding navel, and then the girl was called there's one girl, she's called second wife, and then the other one is called cripple. She's called cripple. I don't know if she did this on purpose, but those are the names, okay? And I'm just gonna read you a few, just 2-3 sentences of the facts that she gives about Congo. In the Belgian Congo of the 1950s, most Africans survived on diets that were absolutely low in protein. Tribes that still hunted were marginally better off than tribes that were primarily agrarian. Chickens and Muscovy ducks were kept by both cultures, but snakes and other varmints took their toll on their number of fowl. Because potential brides were at such a premium amongst the Bashilele due to polygamy, baby girls were contracted into marriage before they were even born. A man in search of a wife would give a pregnant woman and her husband a down payment on the unborn child. Yo, I didn't say we were the greatest, okay? Y'all know these ancient civilizations were really, we could frown upon their traditions, okay? She said, so that's not us. Just so you know, that's not my tribe. I did ask my parents. I'm like, is this us? And she said no. So there. Another facts. Some tribes welcome the birth of twins, but not the Bashilele. For them, it was a great tragedy. Since single births were the norm, it was believed that evil spirit had been born along with the baby. As evil spirits are tricky, it was impossible to figure out which was the real baby and which was the spirit. In order to punish the evil spirit and discourage it from returning at a late date, both infants had to be tortured and ultimately destroyed. Again, not part of my tribe, but this is real. Essentially, you guys, she does say there's so many things that she gives here. It has been said that 90% of African snakes are poisonous, and the other 10% hug their victims to death. So, let's see. Is a spectacular large monkey. The hobby is black. The body is black, but the face is framed with white fur. So anyways, you guys, I could go on, but like I said, The Witch Doctor's Wife is basically the story of, the witch doctor's wife, and her story, her name is Cripple, okay? she gets her stories intertwined with Amanda because she goes to work for Amanda. But now the way the story unfolds is that at some point her husband finds a diamond, because during the 1950s, the natural resource that white Belgians were killing Congolese for, basically, and segregating, because the Belgian Congo was segregated. You had the place for the Congolese, the black Congolese, and you had one side that was for the Belgians. And then the only way the two worlds met was when they would go work to go mine those diamonds. Back then it was the diamonds and gold, but mostly diamonds. And then that's when the whites and black would intertwine, or if they went into the Belgian side to work for Belgian people. Okay, so Cripple has a husband who's the witch doctor, but obviously the whole village know that he's not really real. He discovers a diamond, like a real diamond. Okay, but then the thing is, if you, a black Belgian, were discovered with your own natural resource, you could get killed or imprisoned. Okay, so what he decides to do, he decides to hide it close to a plane crash. There was a plane crash there, and Amanda was in that plane crash, but she survived. Everybody survived, including this Nigerian. There's a mention of also of a Nigerian character in this story. Again, I'm not going to talk about his part in this story. If you want to read the book, you can discover what part he plays. But then, yeah, the husband goes and hides the diamond there. And one day, Cripple follows him, because at some point, I think he just goes back there to kind of make sure that it's still there. So one day she follows him. And then, you know, people may think that Cripple, because she is Cripple, she might be stupid. She's not stupid. She decides to get that diamond and switch it with the fake diamond. And from then on, things will just go from bad to worse. Okay, but it was an interesting story. You will see how Amanda will go above and beyond to help Cripple, because she does get in trouble. Why? I'm not going to tell you why, okay? But she does get in trouble. And then Amanda does, with her white saviorism syndrome, she comes and saves the day. So anyways, yeah, what did I rate this one? Oh yeah, there you go. It was 375 right here. So The Witch Doctor. Right, let me see what I wrote for you guys. I thought she did a good job in depicting Congo during the colonial era, with references to its natural resources such as diamond, cobalt, the Kasai River, as well as the animals. I enjoyed the use of my mother tongue being used. The characters were funny and relatable. They had depth to them. And then I said favorite character, Cripple. Right here, Cripple. So there you have it, you guys. So of course there was something for me, and y'all know, being from Congo, wanting to you know, learn about Congo, but also wanting the world to be conscious of Congo, I will always find books that speaks of Congo and, you know, share with you guys, because I've already mentioned it. We all use these technology, and the cobalt that's found in those technologies come from Congo. There is a serious human rights violation happening in Congo. It's been happening for years, and we need to be conscious, and we need to do what we can. We all have an obligation to do what we can to bring awareness to the situation in Congo. I do my part. Like I said, I am no warrior, I'm no soldier, I'm no politician, but I do my part by reading about Congo, sharing that information, talking to my to people around me, talking to you guys, making these little videos that I make about Congo, especially when I learn from my books. Because for me, education is the main, it's the way we can truly free ourselves. And I'm talking especially to my Congolese people. Oh, okay, you guys, let me see if that was the, and then I read Amari. Amari and the Great Games by BBN. It's continuing the Amari and the Knight brothers, and we follow again Amari, and here we follow Dylan and her friends. One thing that was important here, it was about the time freeze. For those who read, you knew that she was trying to discover who is responsible for the time freeze. Okay, and my kids so far have enjoyed the book, and I think they've rated it 4-star. They loved it because they are curious about the third book. So based on my kids' rating, it's a 4-star. Not my rating. So there you have it, you guys. All the books that I read for the month. Where's the other one? Oh. All the books that I read, plus my audibles for the month of December, you guys. So there you have it. All right, you guys, before I conclude, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next video. All right, and of course, like I always forget, please, to all my new subscribers, I salute you and I thank you for being part of this community. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bye.
Subscribe, hit that